The Tom Woods Show, episode 1011.
Prepare to set fire to the index card of allowable opinion. Your daily dose of liberty education starts here. The Tom Woods Show.
Hello, everybody. Tom Woods here. Before we jump into today's topic, I want to remind you, in case you happen to hear this in time, please, please, please make your best effort to attend the 1000th episode live event that, of course, was rescheduled for this coming Saturday, September 13th, 2017. It's going to be really fun with Eric July as MC, Michael Malice and Tom DiLorenzo as advertised special guests, along with a couple of surprises, and we're going to be doing fun things. You're going to have a great, enjoyable night. It's free, and it's not going to be some panel discussion on the future of liberty. That is just not going to happen. It is going to be a good time, and if you miss it, you're going to be sorry you missed it. I'm just going to put it that way, okay? It's going to be that good. So, get the details at tomwoods.com/Orlando. Make sure and be there. If you're anywhere and remotely in the area, be there. Bring a friend. Bring two friends. It's free. Bring a busload of friends. It's free. It's a night out, and it's free. What the heck more do you need? So please do that. Of course, I've taken a pretty substantial attendance hit because of the need to reschedule, but it was two bad options. I'm either going to take a hit. I'm going to take a hit either way. So anything you can do to get there, I would certainly appreciate. But it's going to be fun. You're not going to say, I'm doing Woods a favor. It's going to be fun, believe me. Anyway, today I want to talk to Bob Bly. And Bob has been referred to by McGraw-Hill as America's top copywriter. So he really knows what he's talking about. And no, for those of you who think we're talking about intellectual property, I don't mean he copyrights things for a living. That would be, if there were such a thing, that would be COPYRIGHTER, but there is no such thing. No, Bob is a copywriter, COPYWRITER, which means he's an expert at writing sales copy, advertising copy. He's good at writing words that sell. That's basically what he does. He's also an expert internet marketer, an overall good guy. And in fact, here's the connection with me. Bob is the only person I have ever in my life allowed to write in my name. Bob wrote the sales copy at libertyclassroom.com. That's Bob Bly, actually. I hired him because McGraw-Hill said he was America's top copywriter. I said, all right, I want the best. So I hired Bob to do that, and that's the only time this control freak you're listening to right now has ever allowed anyone to write in his name. In fact, Bob is so well known that when Jason Jewell, who's been a guest on this show and who also teaches at my Liberty Classroom, when he heard that I had hired Bob to do the sales copy, he said, well, might as well go ahead and book our Hawaiian vacations. So he knew that you use Bob Bly, you get results. So that's why I hired him for that job. And then we've stayed in contact ever since. I'm on his email list. I learn a lot from him. He's written so many books. I don't exactly know what the number is. We'll get into that. But it's just going to blow you away. He's immensely productive, extremely successful, so knowledgeable. He could give you 12 business ideas in 15 seconds. He's an incredible guy in that way. And so I thought we'd talk about these sorts of topics, because here we have this changing world, right? We've got robotics and automation, but writing good sales copy, that's a human trait. Writing good, persuasive sales copy. If you can do that, you're going to be in good shape. In fact, that's why in the Ron Paul curriculum, we actually teach that. Nobody teaches that in school. And of course they don't teach it in school. It's practical, and it'll make you money. So of course they're not going to teach it to you in school. But we teach it in the Ron Paul curriculum because it will make the kids money as they get older. They'll know all these principles. They'll know exactly how to do it. They'll be able to get clients. And if you're a good copywriter, you can make out like an absolute bandit. So I want to talk about that and a bunch of other things, just overall about business and life and good stuff like that. Bob, welcome to the show.
Tom, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
The fact that you're on this show goes to remind people the value of this show to me personally, because this way, this call between you and me would normally cost me a fortune in consulting fees. However, if I turn it into a, quote, podcast, I get to talk to you for free and pick your brain for free. So I didn't quite put it to you that way when I pitched it to you, but, well, too late now. That's what this is. I want to ask you some questions. So I have a few different areas that I want to ask you about. First of all, let's say a little something about copywriting, because that's what you do primarily. You're not a jack of all trades, but you are involved in, you have written about a lot of different things. But for each thing you've written about, you've written the ad copy for it. So it's a very, very lucrative field. How does somebody get started in it? Where do you study it?
Well, the famous novelist, the best-selling novelist, Elmore Leonard, said there are only two ways to learn writing. And you're a prolific book author, so you might relate to this. He said, read a lot and write a lot. But I think there's three ways. Read a lot, write a lot, and study the type of writing you want to do. So in terms of reading a lot, that means not only reading magazines, newspapers, e-newsletters, websites, books on a variety of nonfiction subjects, fiction, but also reading marketing, reading your direct mail when you get it in the mailbox, reading the ads, in your local newspaper and the magazines you subscribe to, looking at the email promotions you get, and then clicking on the links and then reading the sales letters, the landing pages that they take you to. So you have to read a lot of things, but one thing you'll read that others don't includes marketing, and you will read it a little differently because you'll read it as a student and not as a consumer, just as a consumer. You read it as both. The second thing is to write a lot. So that means two kinds of writing for a copywriter: general writing, just to build your writing skills, and then to start getting involved in writing copy. And there's a number of ways to do that we could discuss. And the third one is to study it. And when I started as a copywriter in the late 70s, there was very little specifically on copywriting. There were great marketing books, and that's what we studied. And they certainly covered a lot of copywriting, and you can read those today, and you should read those today. But now there's a lot of copywriting-specific courses, training, and so forth. So the opportunities to study copywriting, which were scarce in my day, back in the day, are plentiful today.
How does a new copywriter get clients?
Well, there's a couple of strategies you can use. One is it's difficult to get clients if you have zero samples to show them. So there's a couple of different ways to get samples. One is to approach a local, not a national, a local nonprofit that supports a cause that you care about, and volunteer to write a fundraising letter for them for free in exchange for, if it works and they like it, they will be a reference for you. They'll give you a testimonial, and they'll let you use the letter as a sample of your writing. And I've done all of the things I'm discussing with you now. Another one is to approach a relative or friend who has a small business and do the same thing, although in this case, you might want to get paid for it, but say, hey, I'll write your ad or your practice brochure if they're a medical practice or a doctor at a discount, but I can use it as a sample, and you'll give me a testimonial, and you'll be a client reference. And the third is to take a course, at the AWAI, or there's plenty of other places that offer courses. And, in my case, I took direct response copywriting at New York University because I lived in New York City, and I got a lot of samples out of that course. And then you can write them on your own. I don't know if you remember those old fast-talking Federal Express commercials, the funny ones, but Emil Gargano, who owned the agency that did that, told me, he says, if you want to get hired by me, get a notebook with some clear sleeves. On the left, tear out of magazines. Today we would print them off the web. Tear out of magazines the ads that interest you, and then on the right, rewrite them to make them better. And that I'll hire someone based on that. So those are 4 ways to get the samples you need. And once you have the samples you need, there are a variety of methods. There's not one. There's at least a dozen or more methods that you can use for prospecting to get clients. And I'm happy to talk about them. I have written a book on this, which is published by Henry Holt and available on Amazon, called Secrets of a Freelance Writer, which lays it all out in detail.
Ah, okay. I actually didn't know that. But on the other hand, given that you've written almost how many books is it now?
I have 94 published, and in various stages When the last book that I have working on now is published in a couple of years, that will be number 100.
All right. So first of all, another great reason to have Bob on is he makes me look like a lazy bum. And
no,
so,
you are. And Tom's books are very, very more, they're at a deeper intellectual level than mine, and they're just terrific. I have at least 3 of them.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say, but I benefit. See, at this point in my life, history's great, economics is great, but I'm fascinated by what you do. And you're right about, you look at the sales page of a product, and when you're looking at it from the point of view of a student, of somebody wanting to learn, you find there's just a garden of delight there. You say to yourself, why do all these sales letters do A, B, and C? Or why, for example, is there a long-form sales letter in the first place? And when I had Michael Chaney on the show recently, he said when he first tried to create a product, he thought, I don't like these long-form sales letters with testimonials and everything. Forget that. I'm just going to do it my way. And it was a total flop. So instead, he started looking around saying, well, how about this? Maybe people who do this for a living know something I don't. And it doesn't mean that the experts are always right. And sometimes it pays to be an iconoclast, but not always. A lot of times it pays to just shut your mouth and be a student, which is what you're suggesting in this case.
Well, Richard Armstrong had a great quote, the freelance copywriter who's very well known. He said, in Madison Avenue, in general advertising, what we call branding or image advertising, their goal is to be creative and different. Our goal is to study, understand, and learn what works and spin that out with a new twist for our product.
I have heard it said that if you are good at copywriting, you will never be poor. Do you think there's any truth to that?
I would rephrase it a little bit. If you were good at marketing and selling, you will never be poor. But yes, I believe as of today, if you are a really good copywriter in specifically the long-form direct response copywriting, you will make a very good living.
For people who are curious to look at long-form copy, what would be an example from among your work that you would refer them to as an example?
Very, very easy. Very easy. All they need to do is go to my site, www.bly, my last name, B as in boy, ly.com, click on portfolio, and they can spend hours looking at samples of long-form copy that has worked.
Right.
Yes, that has worked for my clients.
All right, that's fun. That's fun to me. Now, by the way, I have other topics I want to hit on with you, but I always have to be kind of careful when I cover topics like this, because when you talk about ways people make a living, and boy, do you make a great living as a copywriter, there's a small group of my audience that has a visceral response to this. Stick to libertarianism. I don't want to hear. And I don't know, maybe those people are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, but I tend to think people with that kind of reaction are broke in general. And I was talking to you about this before we went on, and you said you have a theory about, because you've dealt with people like this before, so I'm just curious about your thoughts on that.
Years ago, when, in the early 80s, when I just started freelancing, and when $85,000 was a pretty good salary or income, I wrote a book, my first edition of my book called Secrets of a Freelance Writer, How to Make $85,000 a Year. And I was teaching courses in it for the Learning Annex in New York City and Toronto and California. And I had someone, when I showed the book, stand up, and he was very irate. He says, "You're a liar. There is no way on earth that a freelance writer can make $85,000 a year." And he walked out of the course, and then he called me the next day, and he said, "I'm really sorry. I just had a negative reaction. Can you let me back in one of your classes? Because I paid for that, but I walked out." I said, "No, I can't. You walked out. That was your choice.
Wow.
You can pay for it again." But people have, and I understand this, when people see on TV, a couple that says we made $1 million flipping a house. If you yourself haven't done that, you say, bull crap, it's not possible.
Can't
but
be done.
It is possible. It can be done. So people often react negatively to things that they perceive as they've never done, so to them it has to be a lie.
Yeah, and I've felt that way. Now, occasionally I come across something that is a lie, but
there's plenty of lying out there.
Yeah, but more often for me, I've come across claims and thought, Yeah, right. Good. Yeah, good luck doing that. But then as I've gotten further and further in my life and career, these things have happened to me. I have had a single day where I've had X amount of success in just one day. But of course, we all know it's not really one day. It's the cumulative effect.
Of course, it's not really one day. It's all the effort you put before. And I'll give you one example. You're a book author, so you probably had this or better. But yesterday, I got a royalty check that my agent had sold a Japanese edition of one of my books that I wrote in 1984, and I got a check for $14,000. That is delightful. And, you think about it, the average American works full-time at a 9-to-5 job he or she probably doesn't like for 3 to 4 solid months to make that amount of money.
Yeah.
I made it with, as you say, zero effort. Really, there was no effort. I wrote the book, but, that was 25 years ago, whatever it was.
Yeah, that's just it, that there really is such a thing as passive income, but it does involve a lot of front-end work. It's not.
This is what I tell people. Yeah, this is what I tell people. I didn't mean to cut you off. That active income is great, and it doesn't involve a lot of front end work. You could put out a shingle and start being a chiropractor, or a CPA, or a copywriter tomorrow, and you'll make a decent income. But you'll always have to work. Dentists have a saying: if you're not drilling and filling, you're not billing. It's active income. Passive income is a huge, as you know, because you have it. There's a huge amount of upfront work, but once you got it running and you fine-tuned it, you can make a lot of money with very little continued effort.
Yeah. Now, one of these days, maybe I'll go into all the different things I've got going. I don't know. Maybe I should make that into a bonus for a product or something.
I would read that or listen to it. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. But I'm not just giving this away to anybody. It's got to be people who are action oriented. I want it to be people who have demonstrated that they are on board and they are action oriented. All right. So let's go on to some other things. I'm interested in, and if you're listening and you're not interested in this, I get it, but you should be. All right? You should be. One of the main ways people sell online today is through an email list, in the same way that in the old days of physical mailings, which, by the way, still pack a punch. People think they don't because of email. But if you have a political campaign and you're not doing physical mailings, you are definitely losing out on a major stream of income. But anyway, email is really where it's at. And you have a huge email list. And if you use that email list in the right way, that's a way that the send button can become for you your personal ATM. Now, what I want to know is how the hard part, the easy part is visualizing how having a big email list and sending out offers to that list will earn you a fortune, which it undoubtedly will if you're in a good niche and you're a good emailer. How do you get that list?
There's a 3-step process. You could teach this right now yourself, but since you asked me, I'll tell it. Step 1 is the best way to do it. It's not the only way. The best way, in my opinion, to do it is begin to publish scheduled emails. You can call it an online newsletter or an e-newsletter or an e-zine. Send out regular emails, publish them. Now, you don't have much of a list yet, but you have some names, people and you've been online. Some people have opted in at your website. So, most people I talk to who start, they say, well, I have 300 names. Start with that. Start putting out an e-newsletter, and we can talk about the frequency, but regular emails to your list. Now, step 2 is create a sign-up, a destination on the web where people can sign up. And actually, now I realize there's 4 steps. They can sign up for your list, a dedicated domain and a sign-in or registration page. Third, you want that to be what we call a free-on-free squeeze page or a free-on-free registration page. Just offering get my free e-newsletter is not going to get you a lot of signups. So to get people to, it's ironic or it's weird, to get people to take your free offer, your free newsletter, you got to offer them a free bribe, a free gift. So you have to create some content. Could be an e-class, could be a webinar series, could be some PDFs, and you have, of content in your topic, and you have to offer them a bribe. Say, sign up for my newsletter now and get this free ebook on XYZ topic. Then that will build the list quickly. But to do that, you've got to drive traffic, that's step 4, to your registration page. And there are at least 12 to 20 different traffic generation methods. So now you got to study a little bit of internet marketing. There's plenty of places to do that, and I can tell you what some of them are. But you've got to start. You don't have to master them all. You don't have to try them all. Most people I know who are successful and have a big E-list and are successful in e-commerce or internet marketing, they only use 2 or 3 of the methods. That's their secret sauce, and you can't do everything. But look at all the methods. There's Facebook advertising, very effective. There's social media networking. There's email marketing you can rent lists of prospects in your field. You can send them an email even if they're not your customers yet, and anybody who responds and opts into your list, now you own that name. You can write articles that have your byline in a little box that says, Bob Bly, Tom Woods does XYZ, and you can click here for a free report from him. So there's tons, literally 1 or 2 dozen different methods of driving traffic. You study some, you pick the ones that appeal to you, that work for you. You test some, you do more of the ones that work. You do fewer or none of the ones that don't work.
And am I allowed to ask you, I feel like I'm asking an old woman her age, how many people are on your list?
Yeah, I don't have what we would call a huge list in the market. I have 65,000 people on my list.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, I would slit someone's throat to get 65,000 people on my list.
But you know what? Seth Godin, who I'm not always a fan of, points out very wisely. He says, you don't need a huge list to support yourself. He says, if you have a list of 10,000 names and each of them spends $100 a year with you, your income is gross $1 million a year. And for a lot of people, including me, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, sure. I have 2 lists, and the one that really generates income for me is at about 8,000. And it was generating good income for me when it was 2,000 or 3,000. And part of it was I had pretty decent open rates. I think probably considerably higher than other people in internet marketing, because all they send is, hey, go out and get this. It's 50% off. Hurry up and get it. And then the next day it's, remember that thing I told you about yesterday? It's still 50% off. Go ahead and get it. I send off-the-wall stuff, Ben Settle-inspired emails, and they get opened and people look at them, so I can compete with people who have lists 4 or 5 times as large as mine. So that is an excellent point.
Yeah, I mean, I went to a talk. I forget the guy's name. This guy was such a successful marketer. He says, I have a list of 3,500, and he made a fortune because they spent an average of like $200 a year with him. And I forget how he did it or what he was selling. But yeah, you do not need a huge list to make a great living.
Yeah, yeah. And I was just thinking about a guy named Pat Flynn, who I guess just released a podcasting course. So he's had a great podcasting career, been very successful.
I've heard of him, yeah.
Yeah. And so he's got a really big list and everything, but everybody on his list knows about him and his success, but in particular, they've been reading his advice over the years, and they know that he gives sound advice. So if he's going to teach you something, it'll be accurate and thorough. So when he released his course, I think his first month's revenue was $250,000. Now, the point is, you don't need $250,000 in a month to be a success. And so even if you don't have a gigantic, let's say you had a list that was 10% of his, so all right, so you only earn $2,500 in a month, but maybe you'll earn, $1,200 the next month. I mean, these are not negligible amounts for a lot of people, and they're a start.
No, I used to have a presentation, I won't do it now, on the levels of success/wealth of internet marketing. And even at the lowest level, I forget what the beginning level was. I think I said the lowest level was, let's say level A is $1,000 a month. And people say, well, that's nothing. It's not nothing. You know how many people could use an extra $12,000 a year, especially if you have a kid in college? So it's, I think, it was $1,000 a month was level 1. $1,000 a week was level 2. And, you're not making enough to be financially independent, but that's another $50,000 a year. In passive income, the average American works all year as a slave to make that amount of money. Most of your listeners make more, but I'm saying, and then the third level was $1,000 a day, and there was one level above that. And you're making $1,000 a day, you basically don't have to work anymore if you don't want to.
Let's talk then more broadly about the field of internet marketing. You are a copywriter primarily, but you're also an internet marketer. I mean, first of all, you market copywriting products, but also you've written about how to be successful in internet marketing. And of course, internet marketing just means using the techniques to get people to buy things that maybe you might have used before the internet, but that in some cases are specific to the internet, like YouTube ads or whatever sorts of things you might use, Facebook advertising. This is an extremely lucrative niche, internet marketing. If you're good at it, if you learn everything you can, if you build a list in it, you're going to make a good income. It is. Whereas if you're in the pets niche or you're in the golf niche, you could do okay. And I know people who do well in those niches, but I feel like this one, there's so much low-hanging fruit in it. There are so many affiliate prizes and everything that if what you care about is I just want to supplement my income, I would go there. What kind of advice do you have in that area?
I would probably, and I hate to, because I think so highly of you, I hate to disagree with you slightly, but I would go with what really interests you. See, a lot of people go into information marketing because they say that's the way to make money, but they don't really care about it. It bores them, and therefore they create Me Too products that really don't have value. So, like, there are some guys out there that are golf nuts. I'm not, I play a little golf, but I'm not hugely crazy about it. And golf is a hugely lucrative niche if you hit it right. Pre-internet, it was a hugely lucrative niche in mail order advertising, and now it's a lucrative niche in internet marketing. Yeah, and it can be products, it can be videos, it can be courses, it can be books. So you should see. Go with what you're interested in. And Aristotle had a great quote. He says, wherein the intersection of your interests and the needs of the public lie, therein lies your vocation.
I feel that way too. I mean, of course, you look at the niche I'm in, it's in education primarily with Liberty Classroom and the Ron Paul homeschool program and stuff like that.
Which I love.
Feel like, yeah, and I know, and I appreciate that. So that is definitely where you have the intersection. The internet marketing stuff I also love because, as I said, these days, that's all I want to really read about. I'm interested in marketing and stuff like that. So I guess my thinking is that if you really start making a good living doing it, you'll become excited about it. Like, that will make you excited about it. You start getting a big fat check, that gets you excited. That was my thought.
Yeah, I mean, here's how I hesitated to go into it because, like you, Tom, I was and am a writer of traditional books for mainstream publishing houses. So I didn't have a compulsion like a lot of people to do Kindle ebooks and to do, self-published books. They said, what do I need that for? I got, McGraw-Hill and Random House publishing my books. And a famous internet marketer, Fred Gleek, was a friend of mine, and he didn't live in the town, but every 6 months he'd come into town to teach a course, and we'd have dinner, and he'd push me and hawk me about get into this. Finally, I gave in, and I said, I'm going to create a product, but I was too lazy to do it. So I had written a series of columns on a topic. I can go into the details for a magazine that had paid me $7,500 for 10 columns, but I owned all the rights to it. So I gave the 10 columns. I didn't even have them as a computer file. I had them in print. I gave the 10 columns to a graphic designer. I said, make an ebook out of it. He did. It cost me like $90 back then. And these columns were sitting in a file cabinet. And to date, I've sold not a fortune, but I've made $48,000 selling these as an ebook online versus without the internet, I would have made not a penny more from them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That kind of story I love. Now, let's get back to emailing for a minute. It's easy for a guy like you to email frequently because when you've written nearly 100 books, you obviously have plenty to say. You'll never run out of things to say or advice to give. But if you're just getting started in some area, you may have enough knowledge to get you by a little, but you might be sitting there looking at your blank computer screen wondering, what do I write to them today?
I think for some people, that could be a problem, but it's actually an easy problem to overcome. First of all, I don't think, and you might disagree with this, I don't think you need to be the world's leading authority on your topic to be a successful author or information marketer about it.
Oh, I agree with that completely. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and if people are listening to this, wonder what are you guys talking about, you only need to know, be fairly educated in it, because if you know more than 90% of the world about this, that's your audience. If there's 10% of the people who are better experts than you and know more, they're not your audience. It doesn't matter. Now, Also, what's the great thing is if you're sending out a weekly or twice weekly or more often or less often email, you don't actually have to have this huge database of knowledge and experience, because in your topic, there's always things that come up that you could write a nice little, an email is not War and Peace or even the length of your hardcover books. An email is 100 words, 200 words, 700 words. It's so easy for something to strike your fancy and for you to write an interesting, engaging email about it that your subscribers would want to read. Half of my emails, maybe not half, a third of them or a quarter of them are my reaction to stupid things I see and hear and people do, at pointing out why they're wrong and telling my readers the lesson, I'm going to teach you how to avoid doing this thing. That's a third of them. They just stuff that happens to me every week of the year. Another third of it is things that I read in the news, or things that, events that I can play off of, that there's a lesson in them. I'm sure it's the same with you. And then the other third is either from my own store of knowledge, or, stuff I would research, or stuff, in my own reading I would come across. You will never in any area or any topic of knowledge, you'll never run out of ideas. I mean, one of your key areas is libertarian thought and economics. You can, and I've studied it, but not to the degree you have, and it's very interesting to me. You could talk about this the rest of your life and not exhaust it, a little bit. There's a great quote from Thomas Edison, and it's true about us in every subject. We don't know 1/1,000,000th of 1% about anything.
Yeah, it's true. And your point that I agree with completely, that you don't have to be, and I think this is what holds a lot of people back, you don't have to be the world's foremost expert on something to teach about it. I mean, because certainly a lot of people who are professional teachers, they are not the world's foremost expert on things, and there they are teaching. But for instance, it's just think of something like, I don't know, let's say learning how to make a YouTube video that ranks well in the search engines. I mean, that's something people want to do. They make YouTube videos and they want people to find them easily. Well, you could study how to do that. If you devoted 2 solid weeks in your spare time to just reading everything you could and doing some trial and error and working with that, you would know more about that than way more than 90% of the public. Way more.
Absolutely.
And it would take 2 weeks. And then you could potentially have a product, or you could make a product based on other people's expertise. You could interview somebody. You could do a series of interviews and then make the interviews into an audio product or into an ebook of transcripts or whatever. The product possibilities are pretty abundant.
The easiest way to make a product, and it's not the only way, but people ask me, how do I get started? And sometimes people, I don't know if they ask you this, they say, Bob, Tom, I'm not a writer like you. I don't like to write that much. So, this is imposing or intimidating to me. I say, it's so easy. Find an expert in your topic, maybe someone who knows a side of it that you don't. Do a webinar with them to your list. I don't care if you have 7 people. It doesn't matter who attends. You're doing it for the recording, or a teleseminar like we're doing now, an interview, and then make a CD out of it and make a downloadable MP3 out of it, and that's your first product.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what about the person you're interviewing? How is that person going to feel about you earning money off that?
Well, here's the thing. I do a lot of podcasts and webinars and teleseminars and phone interviews like this, and I know they're making money out of it, and they're not paying me. So how do I make money out of it? There's 2 ways, and you may do it differently. One is I say to them, I'll do it, but I co-own the rights to the material.
Yeah.
You can use it however you want, but you have to give me a master file of the MP3 or the MP4, and I can use it how I want. And if they don't agree, most people agree to that. If they don't agree with it, I say I can't do it. The second way is if they're creating a product, I said just, and it's something that relates to what I do, that which would have to be in the marketing area. It wouldn't work if it was, gardening. I say I'll sell it as an affiliate, for an affiliate commission, and I make money that way. Because if I sell a lot of affiliate products to my list, but if I say in my email, hey, in this series of interviews, I'm interview number 7, my list wants it more.
Now, that is interesting. As I'm sitting here thinking, I'm imagining that a guy like you with all this knowledge of these topics off the top of his head, I could sit here and we could effortlessly create products all day long, one after the other on all kinds of topics. I'm not saying we have to do that at this moment, but I mean, the possibility, that would be an easy way for me to create a product, and I would gladly share it with you.
I actually think we should do that. So that's a separate discussion between us. But it's interesting, when I first got started and Fred got me into it, I learned internet marketing, and within, 3 to 6 months, I was fairly profitable. And Fred said, you're my best student. He says, why don't we meet in New York City? By that point, he had a little apartment there that when he would come to the East Coast, he said, we'll sit with a digital recorder and we'll have a discussion about it. The way you do it, following my system, but you do it with a little bit of a twist. So we did. We called it we recorded it literally in less than 4 hours. And Fred's approach to audio, he doesn't edit it. It's raw. We take the raw, we would sell it. Back then we would do it on audio CDs, and it's still available on CDs, but now more people buy it as an MP3 download or that they can get online. And, it took 4 hours to record it. And I have personally, I don't know what Fred, because we each own it and we each sell it separately. We don't pay each other. We just own it as separate products. And I have sold well over $120,000 worth of that product.
What is your basic advice to somebody who thinks, I've looked around online enough to know that it's a gold mine and that maybe I would prefer that kind of lifestyle to the rat race I'm running now, but my gosh, I don't even know what step one is. What would you say to somebody like that? You must get that question.
Yeah, and my first thing is, which they often don't like, don't quit your day job yet.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, what you should do is go for phase one. Remember I said there's 4 phases. Phase one is $1,000 a month, phase two is $1,000 a week, phase three is $1,000 a day, and phase four is $1 million a year or more. And go keep your job, and in your spare time, not your main time, your spare time, instead of watching TV at night, which the average American does, I forget what the figure is, 2 hours, hour and a half, 4 hours, it's a ridiculous amount. Don't watch TV. Don't watch football games, even if you like them. Don't watch The Walking Dead. Work on your internet business. And people say, how soon can I make money? I said, to get to level 2 and 3, it may take a while. And Fred and I say, a lot of people, if you're starting from scratch, you may not get to 6 figures for 12 to 24 months, but to get to level 1 and start making $1,000, some pocket change a month in your spare time, you could do that in a month or two.
All right. Interesting. I want to ask, as we close, a question just for my benefit primarily.
Sure.
I'm curious to know how you yourself today build your list.
I do it through, I still use a variety of means. One of them is whatever I'm doing, people will say to me, let's say I write an article for an e-newsletter. Let's say I do a phone interview like this one. They'll say, Bob, how can I promote you? What can I, if I'm writing your article in your bio, what can I promote? Which product? I say, don't promote any of my products. Sign into my free on free squeeze page. The bonuses I give, for free, which people can get only by opting into my e-list. And that's one of the primary methods I use to build it.
All right. Excellent. Well, I would tend to think people, after hearing you talk, just even for this short time, want more Bly, which, by the way, to my smaller list, I have promoted a number of your products and people are very receptive. Yeah. So let's talk about how people can find out more about you and learn more from you.
The best way is I offer, and first of all, they want to see an example of this newsletter sign up or free on free registration page. They should look at mine, which is www.byasandboyly.com/reports. On that page, you can download a library of 4 of my special reports, which we actually sell on my main website. We sell them for $29 each, so 4 has a value of well over $100, and you can get those 4 reports, it's like 80, 90 pages of stuff or more, for free just by opting into my newsletter. And if you don't want to get the newsletter, you opt in, and the next time you get it, if you don't like it, you just opt out and you keep the reports. But what you find is when you use this strategy is people opt in for the free bonus. But if they get your first issue and your second issue and they like it, they'll stay.
Yeah, that is the key. That is the way to think about it. So it's bly.com/reports.
/reports, REPORTS.
All right, I'll link to that on the show notes page. Obviously, we could do multiple episodes together, so maybe we will have to do that. I heard about you for years before I approached you about doing a project for me. I'd heard about you for years and all the great things people said, and I finally came to the conclusion that I can't do everything myself, and I'm not an expert on everything, and in some cases it's better to pay another person for his expertise than to try to acquire the expertise yourself. That's called the division of labor, the very thing I'm supposed to be talking about most of the time. It was very hard to get me to actually do it. I would, no, I'll save the money and do everything myself. Oh, man, I would say that's probably the biggest mistake I've made over the years.
Me too.
I'll save the money and do it myself.
I did the same thing. Yep, I did the same thing. And then I said, I can't know or learn everything, and I don't want to. So if I need a video, like a little sketch video for one of my landing pages, I'm not going to buy the sketch video software and try to master it. I hire a guy.
Yeah, and I mean, when I think about the old days when I used to make YouTube videos, people don't know the work that goes into those, like to get the lower third in there and to, whatever, to have it fade in and out and get the lighting right. And I could have just paid somebody $50 to do that, and I would have had the whole rest of my day open, in which I would have earned way more than $50. What was wrong with me? I don't know. But anyway, all right, that's a whole other conversation. So bly.com/reports is where people should go, and I'll put that on the show notes.
bly.com/reports, right?
Yes, and I will put that on my show notes page as well. Well, thanks again, Bob. We'll do it again soon.
Thank you, sir. It was an absolute pleasure.
All right, everybody, the show notes page is tomwoods.com/1011, and that's where you can get those links in case you forget them. Tomorrow, already, I've got Jared Casey coming back to join us once again. We're going to talk about his discussion of Marxism in his enormous new book on the history of political thought called Freedom's Progress. And I thought, well, these days, unfortunately, Marxism is kind of important, so we're going to talk about that. I also find it very interesting. It's a great, great topic, and he is a fantastic person to discuss it with. So definitely check out episode 1012, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Become a smarter libertarian in just 30 minutes a day. Visit tomwoods.com to subscribe to the show for free, and we'll see you next time.